And welcome, everybody. It's the Rugby Rant. I'm the big guy, Scott Ferrara. What are we on? Season 6, Rob? Can you believe it's season 6?
Can't believe
That's
it's
crazy, dude. I mean, we've been doing this now for 6 seasons, 196th episode. I mean, you can't.
Who would have thought some silly ass row between two idiots that support different teams would result in a podcast that lasts
resulted a podcast, 6 seasons, 17 different we've changed format 17 different times. Now we both root for the same MLR team.
That's right.
we root against each other in pretty much everything else. It's crazy.
Packers suck, Bears won.
Playoffs, I think called playoffs. That you're not in. Yeah, okay, Jim Mora, that you're not in with your high price rookie quarterback. No, he played actually good this season. I can't fault him. He did well. But guys, it's the Rugby Rant. We're back, bringing you a great episode of the Rugby Rant. Again, the big guy Scott Ferrara, Rob the Hammer Hammerschmidt, and with us today, MLR play-by-play commentator. He is the voice of Big Ten hockey, but most importantly, he is the voice for American rugby. Ben Holden, welcome to the show.
That's a great intro, Scott. I appreciate that, man. It's good to be on with you guys. We're training camps are underway, so we're getting closer to the start of the Major League Rugby season 8. So this is good for me to get on with you guys and get my mind engaged in the sport that's really become really something I do more than anything. I did more hockey than anything for a long time. And, I'm still a hockey guy at heart, always will be. And now I'm a rugby guy at heart and love the opportunities that are coming my way and love being a part of MLR and excited for all the things that are coming down the road here this year.
Now, Benny, for guests that don't have as much background in Ben Holden lore, tell them where they can find you on your own podcast, because you do a bit of podcasting yourself.
Yeah, I do a podcast called When the Game Ends with a former U.S. national development player, Mike Carmen, played at Minnesota for 4 years. Carmi and I were together in Lake Erie in the American Hockey League with Colorado's farm team for a couple of years. And that's a venture that him and I started October of last year. We've done 13 episodes, and it's basically a podcast about athletes transitioning out of sports, athletes, coaches. It could be an equipment person, it could be a trainer, whatever, because that's a hard transition for athletes. And one guy that I definitely want to get on is Greg Peterson, and with him just retiring, I'll be reaching out to Greg this year. And we had Will Hooley on. I know Will's been on your show, and everyone knows Will in our sport, and pleasure to work with him. And so yeah, we do that. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we got our own page on Instagram and on Twitter, When the Game Ends. And yeah, it's something that's really become really a passion of Carmi and I, and we're looking to keep building it here this year. So thanks for letting me plug that, Rob.
Yeah, no worries. The guy you also might want to consider having on is the Iceman, Chris Mattina. The guy spent a number of years in the MLR and has had to transition this last year, but is really making waves. Not only his involvement with the union, so still staying involved with MLR and MLR players, but also doing a bit of coaching and some other things outside of the, actually playing on the pitch. And it's great to see Chris having success in his next chapter in life.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'll definitely reach out to him. I see him a lot on Instagram, and I know we're going to talk a little bit as we move on in the show about something he's been involved in. And Chris is a good guy. Enjoy interacting with him. It's crazy. I mean, all the people on Instagram that I interact with more than anything are rugby players and hockey players. So, if I'm ever in trouble and I need help, I know who to turn to.
I was gonna say, if you're ever in a bar fight, you have plenty of friends that got your back.
Yeah, to me, Rob, we've worked together a few times, you and I, on some broadcasts, and it's always fun. And I'll say this, I mean, one of the reasons that I feel like I've fallen in love with the sport the way that I have is there are a lot of reasons, but one of those big reasons are the players, the coaches, the people. They're good human beings. They're grateful, they're humble, they care about what they're doing, and they got a great passion for it. And that's how I am as a person. And, my background in hockey made that transition real easy for me. This will be my 5th full season of doing MLR. So I can't wait, and really appreciative of the opportunities that are coming down the line.
No, it's awesome. I mean, there's a whole list of guys I would say you need to interview that come from rugby that recently have kind of let go, and I think it would give you different perspective too on where they were when they left the sport in their journey. Troy Lockyer is that type of guy who, due to injury had to kind of leave the sport, and he was a big up and comer for USA Rugby. And now he's transitioning into real estate, and it's really interesting to see him kind of grow outside of rugby as a young guy. But it's a good podcast. I'm a follower, I'm a listener. So follow them on Instagram and all the socials, and definitely give them a subscribe to their podcast. I think it's one of the things me and Rob always talk about is we really don't have competitors. We're trying to push the sport out. We're trying to push content out for everybody. There's something out there for everybody that they could be doing, they could be listening to, they could be enjoying. So please subscribe to When the Game Ends. It's a great podcast.
Thanks, boys.
Yeah, and of course, man, Rob, it's like we haven't done this in 6 weeks, so
a little bit of a layoff here, but we're
getting the rust off.
I know. Woof, we got this new for everybody who doesn't know. Rob does a lot of our production outside of the things I do for the website, and he has this nice little border going around. The Rugby Rant logo is going crazy. I really do enjoy it, but it's my ADHD's kicking in. I'm looking at everything move around the screen. Yeah, so we might have to find a producer that we don't necessarily pay to do some of the stuff I'm doing, because right now I'm all conked out. But let's get to our next segment.
He's watching jerseys. He's watching.
Yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot
Rugby Rant logos.
Miami jersey. Then I went, oh, that's the stupid NOLA jersey that I don't like that we talked about in the last episode. It's just, it's all going on in my head. But let's get to the next segment around the pitch. Rob, you're up.
Yeah, thank you very much. Some interesting news, not necessarily North American, but it certainly hopefully involves the United States, because we're talking about Australia 2027. Of course, the World Cup will be headed down under. And we know that the tournament itself is going to be expanded from 20 to 24 teams, which is good news, certainly for Tier 2 teams that are right on the cusp of getting into the World Cup. But more significantly, a recent announcement, there are going to be 4 pools of 6. It was thought that there were going to be 9 cities in which the World Cup was going to be played. They whittled that down. Melbourne is out. Originally, Melbourne was supposed to have 2 venues. The Melbourne Cricket Ground, of course, a very, has a lot of history with rugby, and of course the Wallabies and Bledisloe Cup, but also the Melbourne Rectangular Stadium. Both were supposed to be used as World Cup venues. They are not. They are out. And so now down to 8 cities, and the final will be at the Sydney Stadium. And they're also going to use the Olympic Stadium in Sydney as well as a secondary venue in Sydney. So 8 venues. Sydney's going to get the final 2 venues in Sydney, and Melbourne is out. So some significant news for those people down under that are planning to travel to Melbourne. They're going to have to make travel arrangements and change those a bit.
Usually I'd go right to Ben, but I got to give the disclaimer. Melbourne. Say it correctly.
Melbourne.
Ben, if I went up to Canada, to St. John's, and said Newfoundland, they'd kill me. Newfoundland.
Well, I'll give you one rugby related that you guys will appreciate. So we're back in, when was it? July. Yeah, it was in July. It was my first international, and it was Scotland and the U.S. with Will and Mike Petrie. And Will said it's not Edinburgh, it's Edinburgh.
Yeah,
so there's
Edinburgh.
another one, right?
Edinburgh.
Edinburgh. Yeah, Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Edinburgh. Sorry, I'm a little rusty, but yeah, another one. It's like Louisville, right?
I was right next door.
Right.
I was right next door to you in the area for where they put the guys who tweet shit. That's me. Media relations, I think they call it. But it was me and like Martin Pengelly and Adam Ray and a bunch of guys that aren't the cool people who get paid to do it. But it's funny you mentioned that, because me and Rob say things incorrectly all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. But I gotta correct him on that one. Melbourne.
Yep. Yeah. And Will said, he goes, believe me, if people hear you mispronounce that, you will hear about that.
Yeah.
Edinburgh.
And we got it right all night. So yeah, you gotta get those You got to get those regional and national
And
dialects.
I was in Scotland last not this past August, the August previous, and it's Glasgow.
Yeah,
not Glasgow. Glasgow.
Yep. Glasgow. Yep. That one's a lot easier than Edinburgh.
Yeah. Too many consonants at the end.
It rolls off a little bit easier. Yeah.
All right. Sorry for the interruption, but Ben, you have your next topic.
Okay. We're going to talk about Alona Marr, and over the weekend she made her debut with the Bristol Bears, and I mean they're packing stadiums. What a worldwide impact this young lady's had, and I had the pleasure of working with one of her Olympic teammates, Spiff Cedric, and just seeing what that women's team has done for the growth of rugby in this country is absolutely incredible. It's just an incredible story, and the way that Alona has just carried herself and represented this country and represented the sport. I commend her and tip my hat to her. It's just awesome to see. And she's doing great things, and the sport's going to continue to grow in the United States because of certainly what the women's team did this past summer. And she's a major part of that. So great to see that over the weekend, guys.
Absolutely. So my first topic, I'm going with, we had some recent signings. The Hounds signed prop Kobe Baker and lock Tavius Sakura Mathis. Now, Tavius, I believe, is a U23 Eagle. And, if you watched, I probably episode 190, 191, 192, 193, 194, 195, I talked about what are we doing at the lock position for the senior men's team? And this is what we're doing. We're getting guys like Tavius in, that he's going to get some time in the MLR. Obviously, if he's getting real time in the MLR, Scott Lawrence is going to be rooting around there, Rob. I'm sure you can give me updates on what Tavius is doing, pitch side, because we're in desperate need of locks. I mean, Ben spoke about it. Greg Peterson retiring, Nick Chavetta retires. We're losing the prototypical lock. You can't teach height. It's just one of those things. So, that's what we're really looking to do. And then the big one was Reese McDonald going to LA, leaving New England. It seemed to be a shock to some people. You know how these trades go, though. Typical MLR for cash considerations later. It's probably a family thing, or to be closer to somebody, or maybe somebody, needed to move for work. It seems like one of those situations. Usually when it's cash considerations, we know it's the player kind of asking to leave the organization, usually not in a quote unquote bad way. But that's a big one. He was the 2024 MLR back of the year. That back line is going to be dangerous. You got Andrew coming back. I mean, it's going to be crazy out there. But those are the recent signings in the MLR. Rob, your last topic here.
Yeah, this one kind of struck a nerve. Scott Lawrence, around about, I would guess a week or so ago, put out a piece on social media, and he talked about rugby high performance pathways as it connects to Moonshot 2031. And I've talked about this in our Rugby Rant blog in a series. So check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Nevertheless, he talks about the fact that there's alignment on the 0G game model through our age grades. So there's a big focus on developing future Eagles. He talks about the 18 to 23-year-old Gemini big play and investing in the right way in those players and developing their skill level. And being able to evaluate them and being able to provide them meaningful minutes. And then he goes on to talk about the surge and the growth of like-minded programs in providing those meaningful minutes through College Rugby Association of America, that's CRAA, the sanctioned collegiate pathway for USAR. And he even specifically mentions Penn State, Mount St. Mary's, St. Thomas, etc., and really taking a leap to develop the next generation of Eagle players. This drew a lot of criticism from those that support NCR. So it's interesting that there's almost a divide that's continuing to grow, and that chasm is becoming larger between NCR and CRAA. And there's a lot of issues that are manifesting themselves. So keep your pulse on this one, folks. I think it's something to watch as we continue to see the development become more of a important piece as it plays a role in 2031. Well, 2027, but more so 2031.
Again, I'm going to have to interrupt because Rob is coming with no. This is great content, but I think that's something we'll have to go into on a later show in depth.
Yeah,
this the particular way he said it from my standpoint. I think it's just how you're aligning with who's the sanctioned body and what he wants to say. But it definitely does stir up controversy, and I think Scott needs to, if he doesn't know that's what's going to happen, then he really needs to rethink some of the things that is going out there.
Scott's a smart individual, and I think when he says something, when he puts something out, he fully knows and understands the significance of it and how it might come off. So I have no doubt that this was something he understood the ramifications of moving forward. So it'll be, again, interesting how it plays out. I mean, quite frankly, I think the message is play more meaningful minutes for your players, regardless of whether you're CRAA or NCR. We need players with more meaningful minutes in order for them to develop. And, how can you argue with that?
No, absolutely right. But I think that might have to be a topic in a later show and maybe just a short one between me and you to kind of flesh out what we think is going on. But Ben, you're up with your next topic, and you had mentioned it's Chris Mattina is going to be a little bit in the information there.
Yeah, and I want to get this factually right, so excuse me, I'm going to look down here a little bit at some of this, but just 4 days ago, the Players Association, Players Union, they announced that they've come to an agreement with Major League Rugby about these midweek games that are going to be played, guidelines for teams facing multiple games in a short period. The following things are listed: increased use of loan system outside of usual window to get players. They're going to have guys that, can come in and play. These guys can't play these matches this close together. Ability for teams to travel with a bigger squad to away matches. And there's going to be guidelines regarding training days off during the time period. I say it all the time, and I've said it for years, doing this sport and calling this sport. I don't know how men and women play this sport and rebound and play through what they play through. It's absolutely remarkable. No helmets, no pads, no nothing. It's nuts. I'm glad that they've gotten this framework in place and will allow these sides that are going to have to take part in these matches that are going to be on. I've seen preliminary schedules. You're looking at Monday games. You're looking at Tuesday games. You're looking at Wednesday as well. So it's going to be a really quick turnaround for the ones that have to take part in it. And I'm curious to see how it works out, but it's good that they've got the framework in place between the Players Association and the league. It had to be done, guys, and it's a good thing they got it done, and they released this 4 days ago.
Ben, I want to just jump in here real quick. For those that don't know or haven't, have kind of tuned off during our break, I've been talking about the Coach's Corner segments that I was doing. Yeah. We just released John Minetti from the San Diego Legion.
I saw that, yeah.
This week. And I think it's important for people to check those out, because with each one of the coaches, I talk or ask them about the scheduling and just how are they going to manage some of these compressed weeks where we have 3 or 4 games in 10 to 12 days. And it's kind of interesting to listen to their different approaches. And quite honestly, sometimes you hear coaches that basically say, hey, this is nothing new. We do this, or I did this when I coached in another league. And so, folks, check the Coach's Corner out. They will all give you a unique perspective as you pay attention to those interviews that I've done. But it'll really put a nice kind of lens from which you can view these midweek games in around about week 12, week 13, week 14.
If I could add, Scott, before you might jump in with something more because on Rob here, but all kidding aside, I will say this, for a growth standpoint in this country, I think it's important that we have these matches, these Mondays, these Tuesdays, these Wednesdays. The sport needs to be in a bigger spotlight for it to really grow and to get bigger and to get more eyeballs on it. So from that standpoint, I think it's great. The player side, they'll work that stuff out. And I get it, man, because I never played rugby. I was a hockey player. I still play at 54 years old. I play twice a week. And the toll on the body, I can't imagine what it's like to play this sport. I never played it. and I watch and I hear and I see these hits and what these guys go through in this league, man, the ultimate respect to me. So I just wanted to add that. I think, again, from the growth standpoint, I think we need these matches during the week. Some of the players may not like hearing that, but I think when this keeps going on, hopefully for years beyond this year, I think it's going to make a difference in the sport and certainly in Major League Rugby.
Man, we should have Ben on more often because what have I been saying, Rob? Everybody, it's
anytime.
A lot of people disagree with me, but and I understand the term Saturday's a rugby day, but guess what? If you can't have your core audience watch it because you're playing on a Saturday, or you can't watch it on a Saturday because you're playing or you're watching your friends play or going to your own socials, what are we really doing here? So have it on those days where people reasonably outside of their practices and matches can go and actually either watch or attend. I mean, that's what Rugby New York did, is they had everything on Sunday because they realized having 3 of the biggest club teams in the United States, those guys couldn't come to matches. Their B teams couldn't come to matches. Their C sides couldn't come to matches. The women's teams couldn't come to matches. So what were we doing? So having that on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, instead of, you think about it, Saturday is NASCAR day. You'll have golf in the spring. You have spring training that's coming up. Hockey playoffs are there. Basketball playoffs are there. March Madness, we always know.
Lacrosse, there's all kinds going on.
PLL, college lacrosse, women's softball, collegiate softball. You have all that stuff that's crammed on the weekend, specifically collegiates, because they're trying to get it in before the end of the semester.
Yep.
Why not throw it on a Monday night when there's really no meaningful games on?
It needs to be in the spotlight, guys. I mean, this is probably a topic for another podcast too. And I'll come on with you guys anytime you want. Seriously, I mean that. Sincerely.
The amount of topics we burn in around the pitch before we even get to the current topic or using it as is insane. Because once you get us going, it's me and Rob will fight. I mean, we will continue to fight about this text message like a married couple. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think 2 things. I think it needs to be in the spotlight. There's a term in television we use called standalone. Like Rob, the other night when I was doing that Michigan State-Wisconsin game, that was the only game in college hockey.
Right.
So everyone in college hockey that's a college hockey fan is watching that game.
I was watching.
And that's what Major League Rugby needs, in my opinion. It needs to be in the mainstream, and it needs to be at the highest level it can be at. And I mean by that is whatever the network is, whatever the broadcast is, it needs to be at an absolute gold standard, because people in this country need to see that this is a 1,000% legitimate sport. It's played by warriors, men and women. And what do Americans love? I mean, they love violence. They love hard hitting. They love all those things. And I'll stand on that mountain forever that it needs to be in the spotlight more.
Let's build on this, Rob. Whoa, Rob. Let's build on this. When are we getting the Hounds to play at Wrigley?
Ooh, that's awesome. I like that.
Yeah. Ooh, that would be solid. I was going to say, so I'm going to stir the pot a bit and throw in another question for another day, which Benny can join us. And that is, should the MLR flex some of the games throughout the season? Because we get closer to the end of the season and we have more.
I'll tell you right now,
that can't happen. Matchups.
That can't happen.
It could happen. If you do it 2 weeks in advance, you could do it.
I'll put it this way: knowing the team managers who do all this in advance, it can't happen. I'll tell you that right now. Not right now. Not with the way the league is.
Okay. Here's one. Let's say you're supposed to play a match at 1:00 on a Saturday or Sunday, and you want to slide it back. If you're in the Central Time Zone or Eastern Time Zone, it's easier to slide it back to night. Be a little more challenging to do that with Seattle and San Diego and LA. But you could do that with a couple of weeks notice. You could do. That's what I'm saying.
Slide it. That kind of flex you could probably get away with. But I'm telling you from intimate knowledge of 6 years in this league and knowing a lot of team managers who have come and gone and some who are still there. the rinky dink level. I'll put it this way, Ben. If I were to equate the MLR to a hockey league, you ever heard of the Federal Prospects Hockey League?
No, it's not that. No,
yes,
no,
yes,
no,
it is.
no.
Yes, it is.
No. No,
it's not ECHL. It's definitely the Fed.
No, it's not Rob. No.
This is why we call it the Rugby Rant, folks.
Yeah, I mean, American League right now, and this league with the right direction. And I think I was in the American League, so I'm going to say that comfortably and stand by it. But I think with the right direction, the right guidance, and I think that's the big thing. I can't say that enough, guys. Mainstream, spotlight, put it in front of people at the biggest times. And what I mean by that is the biggest times where there's windows to do so.
Yeah.
Put it on those Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights. Hey, rugby's on, right? I mean, make it a thing.
Absolutely.
So,
all right, let me get
exactly where you guys thought we were going to go tonight, right?
No, this is awesome. No, I love it. I love tangents, and Rob always has to reel me in. So this is right up my alley. But
some of the best shows.
Some of the best shows I've ever done. Whether I did morning radio for years in Ann Arbor.
Oh gosh,
the shows that was fun. I mean, you put your feet up, and people want Lloyd Carr fired every day. But the point is, some of the best shows I've ever been a part of are ones that they're kind of scripted. But you just kind of go with it, right? And that's awesome, boys. Yeah, there we go. Look at this.
Put that on right there. I told you, I have. If I could, I have the banner up here right now. It's those who stay will be champions. You don't understand.
You are a diehard Michigan fan.
You do not. My favorite, because I've talked. Anthony Thomas, the running back, A-Train, was my boy. He was my favorite. The reason I'm a Packers fan is because of Desmond Howard.
Okay.
Because when he went to the Packers and ran the touchdown in the Super Bowl, that's why I'm a Packers fan. Hate anything Ohio. They keep talking, no, we're gonna bring Ohio Aviators back to rugby. I'll hate them worse than New England. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I think we have to take spotlight it and do everything. But so I'm gonna go to my last one, which has nothing to do with rugby.
Oh boy.
Rob and Ben, Ben and Rob have nothing to do with this. This is a political statement. The only time I think we've ever done a political statement Rob, on this show. So besides having pride in the fact that USA won the Junior World Championships in hockey recently, beating Finland in overtime. Yeah, it was great. Free Bird was the goal song this year. Oh Mama, Don't You Cry. I'm a big hockey fan. So that was a big one for the United States. Today, Tuesday, January 7th, something even bigger. Good news for America. North Korea bans the consumption of hot dogs, declaring serving or consuming a hot dog as an act of treason because it is giving in to the Western American civilization and way of life. They've banned the consumption and serving of hot dogs because it's too goddamn fucking American. Cue the eagle screech. Cue somebody cracking open a Bud Light. Play fucking Free Bird at the top of your lungs in your car tomorrow.
Hey, I think his first act, President Trump, as his first act after he's inaugurated, should go meet with Kim Jong-un eating a Chicago-style dog.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you that all he needs to do, he can go to Chicago, he can go to New York and just eat a fucking hot dog and just send him the photo. That's all he really fucking needs. But it was, I was like, that's America. That's awesome. America. You can't consume a food because the civilization is infiltrating their culture. Proud to be an American. That is the end of my political statement. And like I said, Rob and Ben had no idea that I was going to do it.
But I like it. I like it.
Good shout out for the World Juniors, man.
Yeah,
never went back to back, and
nope.
Yeah,
and I have several friends in Canada in the Canadian military, so I fucking sent that to them a million times. I sent them clips of Canada being knocked out. I sent clips of Canada losing to fucking Czech Republic or Latvia.
Yeah.
It's so. I think that's the college football guy in me. It's so much more fun to send those guys their team losing than sending them my team winning. But anyway, all right. Great, so man. We have our topic that we're actually gonna get to for this rant. Man, this is gonna be crazy. Rob actually came up with this topic. He does most of the topics, and we kind of parse it out, but he'll kind of give us the finished product, and I really like it. It was, what storylines, or at least your top 3 storylines, do you want to see in the 2025 Major League Rugby season? Now, before we get to that answer, we're going to hear a word from our sponsors. So we're back, baby.
What's up, we're back, and it's, with the new season, we have a new sponsor. Everybody can see that we're working with Macron, and I just want to let everybody know, some black tape.
I need new swag.
Some hockey tape there, to cover that up. But Macron is going to be the sponsor of our Super Brew contest, so we can't put that stuff out yet. Super Brew does not have the MLR listed as some of its rugby pick'em contest, but nevertheless, Macron will be sponsoring us. So each week we're going to continue to give away weekly prizes. This time we're giving away MLR Macron hoodies with the Rugby Rant on there, and there's a pretty cool saying on back. If you didn't want to get in a fight, you should have played ping pong. So
nice.
So there's some great swag. And then we're going to have some pretty solid grand prizes too that people are going to like. So we're working on it.
I'm jealous.
Ron, big shout out to Tim Brown for making it happen.
Like if we win, I might not default like we've done in the past. Like I might have to take that grand prize.
True.
But yeah, no, it's listen, we're very excited to partner with them and Tim Brown and everybody, and their factory is opening up in Bridgeport right by me. So hopefully I'll get a tour soon, and maybe do a little bit of a live in there to see how the sausage is made, because everybody loves that. But it's funny you talk about hockey tape and Ben. So my buddy moved to Dallas. We're originally from New Rochelle, New York. Actually home of Kevin Shattenkirk, who just retired. He'd probably be a good guy to have on your podcast.
I know Shatty. He'll be on.
I played with him. Well, I played with him and his brother Keith for New Rochelle Lightning when we were travel age kids.
No kidding.
I always thought Keith would be the older brother to go to the NHL. Believe it or not, I always felt he was. But Kevin was a couple years younger, so it was just a timing thing. But anyway, so I go to visit my buddy in Dallas. He's like, "Oh, my son wants to start playing hockey. He's like 6. They're having this thing. They give you the free pads. You go in there." So we go to the rink, and I mean, I was there in May, right? So I'm in the rink in flip flops, shorts, and a t-shirt, and everybody else who lives in Dallas is in like a puffy jacket, jeans, and then I'm like, okay, and I realized they didn't give the kids garters, and I'm like, all these kids' socks are gonna fall down. So I was like, where's the pro shop? They're like, oh, we don't have a pro shop. I'm like, well, what do you got? We have a vending machine with tape.
Oh, geez.
Bring $12. I get about like this much tape. I taped the kid up, and I'd already I took out the ear guards because that always annoys kids. I made sure the helmet fit right, and I did all the adjustments for my friend's son. He doesn't know how to tie skates. I'm sitting there, I'm pulling the skates real tight to make sure his ankles aren't going to bend. I'm getting them all ready. And then the parents next to me are like, "Can you help us?" I go back, $17 for the tape. I tape everybody up. Now they're doing this at the arena where the Dallas Stars play. There's actually a practice rink underneath. So they're doing the whole thing. So we go out there. They have like an hour's worth of really just kind of learn to skate time, and they're kind of pushing a puck around with their glove or whatever. So they're finish up. Everybody comes out, and the guy who's running it's like, "Hey, who taped up all the kids, legs?" And I was like, because they all were taped the same. It's like, it was me. He goes, "That's a good idea, because usually their stocks come down." I said, "You run it. Why didn't you get them sock garters? You're giving them everything else." So the first thing I did was I went on Amazon next day, got a skate key, got sock garters, the whole 9 yards for my buddy, and his son's been playing hockey ever since. But they had no idea. These poor parents had no idea. And luckily I've been playing hockey since I was 5. So even just go, I'm like, well, you could tape them and do this and do that. And it's so funny how it just kind of flows. I never would have thought, in my 37 years, I was going to help one of my best friend's kids, because he never played. Like he's not about hockey, and his son wanted to play. And I'm like, and I just the week I happened to be there is his first learn to skate thing. So,
and now Scott's the equipment manager for the Phantoms.
Seriously.
Very nice.
It's so funny.
The last time I saw Shatty was at the Downtown Marriott in Houston. Would have been 2010, like around November. Yeah. I think it was 11 games. He was a +2 and had no points, and he got called up and he never came back. True story.
Listen, that's how it works, man. Shoot.
Yep. He was smart, very smart.
Yeah, he played. It's same thing in rugby. You have to have the IQ sometimes.
Yep. Right.
It's not necessarily about athletic ability. So let's get into the off the tangents, because I could talk to Ben about hockey all day. So what we talked about is storylines for the 2025 MLR season. And I'm going to kick off my storyline first, because I don't want anybody to fucking take it, to be quite honest. So The first one I came up with is how well will the new coaching carousel fare in 2025? We have a lot of brand new coaches. Prominenti, as you spoke about, Rob, was episode 1 of Coach Corner. You can catch that on our YouTube and Facebook. Great interview. I mean, we received a lot of great feedback, specifically from San Diego fans. They loved it. But how are they going to fare? Because what we've seen is, despite how good a head coach can be, you also have to work with the GM. You have to work with the top of your organization. You have to work with players who might be there forever. Our buddy Doc Irie is never leaving NOLA. He's probably, he will be the oldest MLR player at some point when he retires at 72 for the NOLA Gold. It's hard to build that, right, with a guy sometimes, right? And that's not a shot at Doc. I'm just using him as an example to bust his balls a little bit. But my point being, you can be the greatest coach in the world with the greatest skills. How are you going to come in with the team, especially if everybody's reporting now and the first game isn't a month from now?
Right.
So that's my storyline, my number one storyline, Joe.
Well, added on to that, and by the way, Ben and I had a conversation today, as I was trucking it out of work, and it was about that very, deal where we're talking about 5.
Which is why I fucking wanted to say it, because I knew one of you guys would take it. I knew it. Once I typed it out this morning, I'm like, they're going to say it.
Yeah. But by the way, I think it's important to recognize that there are very few preseason games, right? So really, coaches have to get off that carousel and get their ship righted right away, because if you get behind the 8 ball early on in the season, it can be very difficult to recover. And we know with that little stretch there in between, week 12, 13, 14, that, if you have those compressed games, it can be very, very difficult to play catch up at that point.
I mean, there's so much turnaround and how quickly, especially like a team like Anthem came into the season last year, and how quickly they had to do what they needed to do. LA changing their venue this season. What's that going to do? We know that a lot of that top organizational stuff has dripped down to other organizations. It has dripped down to the field level. We've seen it, right? I mean, we're not going to parse words. We've seen that happen. So again, what kind of relationship can you build in a month? How are you really going to go about judging your players and figure out who should have meaningful minutes in certain situations, like Scott Lawrence had talked about, playing players meaningful minutes for a pathway of the Eagles. But just like Ben talked about in his ATP, part of the shortened schedule, you're going to have new players playing meaningful minutes that you're not going to be taking everywhere with you, right? Unless it's in those particular weeks for the expanded roster. How are you supposed to figure that out if you don't have any preseason games, or if you only have one preseason game, or you have a guy coming from Fiji who's having a visa issue and he's not going to be here till April, and then, they have to get in game shape, and that's not a knock on anybody. That's just always how it happens, right? Somebody's stuck, the visa gets denied, which we've seen often. They're stuck in their home country, or they're stuck in a different country. They can't really, as much as they want to get into game shape, you're never really in game shape until you're with the team. And then that sets you back a couple more weeks. So how do you evaluate all that as the new?
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing to keep in mind, fans, is actually 3 of the coaches of those 5 have coached in the MLR before.
Yeah, but new teams.
Yeah. No, but not new cities for
correct.
For one of them out there in LA. But yeah, so
sabbatical. We'll say Stevie took a sabbatical.
Yeah, Stephen Hoyles took a sabbatical, but of course, Danny Lee is down there in NOLA, but he was in the league for a long time with San Diego, and of course, Chris Latham here in Chicago was with Seattle last year. So some guys aren't new; they're just in new places.
Correct, but you know what I mean. There's some newness.
Yeah. No. I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. So,
all right. So Ben, do you have a storyline?
Yeah. We start in 1 or we start in 3? How are we going?
However you want. We are not professional. The production of this is very low. So whatever you want to go with.
I'll start with number 1. You started with your number 1, right? So I'll go with my number 1. My number 1 is, can New England make it 3 in a row? I mean, they've got a new coach.
I'm so glad I didn't put that on my list. That was another one.
And Ryan Martin, I mean, he's familiar there. But you guys touched on it, Reese McDonald going out west, and that's a big loss. But they've still got a ton of key pieces back. They got Patros back. They got my boy Quattro, and I love Andrew. He's a great guy. I talk to him every time I do one of their matches. Scott Matthew goes over to Edinburgh.
And
he's gone. He's out of the mix. But, still a lot of pieces with that New England side. And, say what you want about them. Love them, hate them. I mean, maybe they're becoming the Patriots here. I hated the Patriots because they won all the time. But I got a lot of respect for what they've done. And, Tom Kinley's a young guy. I don't even know if Tom's 30, man. And I ran into him at the final, and I was like, dude, you're like Billy Bean, man. You're unbelievable, but you're different than Billy Bean because you're winning. But all kidding aside,
spending money.
Yeah, I mean, I actually watched that movie last night. I love that movie, but I just think the dominance that they put together.
Yeah.
But it goes to what you guys were saying. You only get a couple preseason matches, and for New England, I looked up their first 3 matches of the year are on the road. They're playing 5 of the first 6 away from home. We know how dominant they've been at Fort Quincy. All they do is win, man. And that's going to be, I think the big question going into the season is, can they do it for a third time? It looks like, spoiler alert, it looks like my first match will be New England against LA the opening weekend.
Nice.
So that'll be fireworks.
Coast to coast, baby.
Yeah, that's my number one, guys. Can New England go 3 in a row?
That's a good one. No, and I think that's a great question. And I think, we'll see what has to happen in the Eastern Conference. I'm sure we'll do a preview in one of our shows. Me and Rob haven't really worked out the rest of the month because we're, still getting over that Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner. But, usually we do a preview, and then by week 3, we're doing our way too early playoff predictions, which are always fun and never right. So that's fun. But I think that's a great storyline. Rob, what do you got for your number one?
Well, first of all, I do want to say that Ryan Martin was involved with New England, I think in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. So, I'm sorry, Ryan, for leaving you out. I knew that. I just had momentarily slipped my mind because of
like Hoyles took a sabbatical.
Right. And, it was because of the toddies that I had over Christmas break. I'd won too many old fashions, and they're still providing a little bit of a hangover there. But
you and Rick Collins, baby. Our buddy Rick is always having fun.
Right. But, it's kind of funny that Benny came up with that one. The storyline I want to see, the New England Free Jacks don't three-peat. Not only do they not three-peat, they don't get to the final. And if there is a God, they don't even make the playoffs. But,
wow. Now that's bold.
Yeah.
I'm clipping that.
That's bold, man. I mean, they got a lot of guys back, but that's your call. You go, Rob.
I'm going to make sure I send it to our buddies over at Jack's Rangers.
It's just a storyline.
They'll eat that alive.
But hey, and speaking of that, that's probably the number one reason why. Is just because their fan base, particularly Jack's Rangers, are so damn smug. I mean, for me, I'm a humble dude. Wrestlers know that at any given day, you walk out to the center of that ring and somebody might take your head off, whereas you pinned them the week before. So you got to stay humble. You got to keep digging. You got to keep working. And those turkeys go out there and all they do is, wave their stars and talk about how great they are. And I just want to see them go down like freaking Anna Nicole Smith. All right. The other thing is
Jesus Christ. Anna Nicole taking shots. Rest in peace. Jesus Christ.
So the other thing though is realistically parity is good for the league. And that's and really that's where I'm going to go back to. Sports leagues thrive when there's a lot of parity, when from year to year, any given Sunday, a team can win. And I know the Pats had a great run and they did, but how great was it to see the Giants dethrone them when they were making that 18-0 run? People ate that shit up. And I think that the same applies to rugby. The other reason is look at the run that they've had. Last year, Marcus Callaway Award went to Ben Lesage. Their MVP final, Judd Melvin. Player of the Year, Wayne Vanderbank. Coach of the Year, Scott Matthew. Back of the Year, Reese McDonald. Forward of the Year was a Dallas player who is now at the Free Jacks, and that Gerald Gomez. So, I mean, they really ran the table last year, and I would just like to see somebody else get to the mountaintop.
But they ran the table, but they did what good teams do is they got hot in the playoffs.
Yeah,
there was a spurt there, around that third quarter of the season where it was kind of touch and go, and it was like, and then they got hot, and that's what you're supposed to do, So I mean. We'll see if they can maintain that because they did that the year before as well. So my second storyline that I want to see This is interesting because this is something that me and Rob talk about with a bunch of other guys all the time. How will Sportian elevate the level of content creation on TRN for MLR fans? Because we talked about sometimes the production that goes into the broadcast has been great. It's been elevated every year. They've been making great changes to bring us good production value. But last year, the actual output of the video to TRN, and Rob can attest to this because it happened to Rob. It happened to a bunch of guys that we know. The feed would just go out like somebody kicked the plug in the friggin' production booth. And that really didn't happen prior when they were with the previous company. Last year that happened. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen again, because when people are being introduced to the product, they don't want to see a black screen, right? Secondly, what could they add content-wise? Because they did the TRN Plus, which is giving you a bunch of international level, Premiership, PWR, all that stuff, which I love. I love watching it. But what can you give on the MLR side? Because besides the Rugby Rundown, which took a large break, and MLR matches, which you'll hear Ben do the play-by-play for, they don't really do that much MLR content. So what are they going to do this year to elevate their MLR-specific content for fans? And again, not necessarily make the production side better, but make the output of that production better, so we're not getting those black screen blackouts, or you're missing the first 7 minutes of a half, that type of thing, which again wasn't happening previously. They made the switch from Globit Sportian or to Globit or Sportian, which is part of Globit, the Argentine company. And as we know, sometimes those things get fumbled, but we got to get back on track because we were doing well prior to that. So that's not a shot at the actual television production, but something on the back end was happening this past season where we were getting a lot of blackouts, and Rob knows that.
Yeah.
Because every time I get a blackout, I'm texting him when he's on the sideline, like, "Where the fuck are you?" Because I can't watch the game.
And I'm texting saying, "I'm fucking busy." Okay.
Yeah. But I'm the number one priority in my ear,
and he's saying
I'm the number one
important.
priority, not your professionalism on the pitch.
Well, it's interesting, Ben. If I'm not mistaken, you got something pretty closely tied to exactly what Scott Speaks do here.
I do.
Yeah, I thought you were going to talk about Sportable.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, I flipped on you. Sorry on that.
You flipped on me.
See all that pre-production in the car talking doesn't just do it on the fly. It's way better.
I can add to that.
No,
I mean,
but yeah, go ahead, Ben. I mean, I think you're probably best positioned to talk a little bit about some of the.
Again, it wasn't, and it's not like I'm just trying to put Ben on the spot about it. I'm just saying.
No, I know that. And you guys know I have nothing to do with that. So no, I think like I'll just go back to what I said earlier about the standard on everything that the league does needs to keep growing. Right. It's not that it hasn't grown. I mean, Scott, you just touched on it, how things have improved.
Oh yeah,
seemingly every year. And that's what we got to keep doing. I mean, let's not forget. I mean, this is the 7th full year of the league. So, I can say from my standpoint, watching things in the last 4 years that I've been involved at a much higher level than I was the first couple of years where I was only doing spot duty. Things have gotten better. Things have taken a step. The technical stuff, that's out of my hands. But I love the Sportable stuff, man. I love seeing those, the distances, and I think that's great. And again,
oh yeah,
I think that's big for the audience. Yeah, there's the rugby people out there that know our sport. They understand it, but we've got to keep it's. And I've said this on other shows, guys, and I'll say it on yours. Like it's up to us too, as broadcasters, to keep educating, to keep informing, to keep helping people. I mean, I'll tell you guys, when I started the first year full time in 21, I was basically talked to and said, look, be the fan. Don't worry about understanding everything, because I didn't know what
That's
the hell.
That's why we have Mike Petrie next to you.
Yeah. I didn't know what the hell I was doing the first year and a half. And a couple of conversations have helped me improve in that part of my skills as a broadcaster. I don't know everything. I'm not claiming that, but I've really worked hard on doing that. And I think that we all have to do that. It's our job. It's part of our job as broadcasters and as a production group to keep educating, keep informing, to keep simplifying, not dumb it down, but simplifying things and explaining them. So how was that, Rob?
Yeah, no, that's great. And it
okay, but
leads right
wait,
in.
no, hold on. That's because Rob will do this and keep talking. What was your actual second storyline?
My actual second is a combo. It's two sides.
Okay.
All the moves that RFCLA has made and NOLA Gold, to me, those are the two sides that have made a major statement by who they've signed, by what they've done, who they went out and added to their roster. Can those two teams, will that pay off, I guess? Will that pay off for those two clubs in the coming season? Because, I mean, for NOLA to get a guy like Luke Carty, you guys know and how good Luke is, and I love his game. He's a game changer. A lot of big pieces back on that NOLA side. You know, they'll get Fido back. He was injured late last year. And I mean, that could have made a difference in that playoff match. I mean, that was a really good playoff match. Tip of the cap to Chicago. LA, we talked about McDonald, Billy Meeks coming in. They get Christian Dyer. I mean, they got a world-class group out there in Los Angeles. So that's my second one. Will all the moves those two sides made pay off this year?
Yeah,
that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah, I like it.
That was way better than the other one, the Sportable one. Maybe you should let the professional.
I'm not done with that one yet. I'm not done with that. There was more tread on those tires, Mister. But no,
Rob just wants a ball with the GPS in it so he can kick it around. That's what he's looking for.
Matt Wagner, I'm talking to you.
That's what I'm saying. He's trying to shut out Wags without really shutting him out. You know?
So I agree, Ben. And it's a question whether those two coaches can go right in and put their stamp on that team's identity and how they want to play from the get-go with very little, run up to the season. And I think if you look at NOLA, I mean, the interesting thing about Danny Lee is he moved right from San Diego. He and his wife, they packed their bags and they booked it down to NOLA. He's been in NOLA all of the offseason. Right. So he's gotten an opportunity to put a stamp on things. And I really think with the acquisitions, don't forget that 9-10 matchup that played a lot of minutes together with Ruben just being announced this last week. That could be pretty dangerous.
Yeah. And it's so unfortunate that they lose Jordan Jackson Hope. I mean, there was conversation late last year, guys, that he might be the MVP of the league.
Right.
I mean, in some of the circles I was in anyways. And, they lose Taniela Filimone, great dude. I talked to him before the Tonga match with the U.S. and, he got a great opportunity to go overseas. I mean, he's a world-class player, right? Yeah. I mean, they lose him, but Big Ed out there can do a lot of damage. They got a lot of veteran guys. They had their best season they've ever had last year. They had a home playoff match. But I'm really intrigued about this LA side. I'm intrigued about them both. But then I forgot to mention my guy, the big boy, Kunatani. I mean, nobody could stop that dude. Yeah. I mean, you got weapons all over the pitch for those guys. In LA, I mean, they're going to be dangerous too, man. So it's going to be fun to watch those two sides.
100%.
All right, Robbie, what's your number two?
Yeah, my number two is I want to see more exposure on the broadcast. So the kind of a broad topic, but what's the number one thing that we want to see from the MLR in order to make it grow? And in order for more money to come in to be able to, pay players so they can become better professionals. And that's a TV deal. Like a major network deal would be my ideal situation for the league, right? And that opens up, you go back to broadcast, you go back to making more quality broadcast, that opens up that piece. And on that side, I think I would love to see some, a bit more pregame analysis. I mean, I think Ben can speak to this. They do a great job taping and rolling with some of their pregame, but how great would it be to bring in, some more folks into that piece to talk about what they expect from a particular matchup, and even talk about at halftime, how has this game lived up to what the expectations were on the front end of the game. So to kind of carry forward some of those themes and storylines and have a bit more analysis at the break. But I will say, and this goes back to the Sportable piece, I was on a call or I got a chance to go back to a call about Sportable. I think we're going to hear talent, and Ben's going to be on the forefront of this. Hopefully I get to have a bit of say in this, but we're going to get more in-game stats. So not just, looking at last week or whatever have you, but being able to see, if we have head-to-head matchups, how is this head-to-head matchup, living up to what was billed? What kind of meters are, let's say a Billy Meeks, what kind of meters is he chewing up? as compared to, let's go on the NOLA side and a guy like JP Duplessis.
So you mean you want content like I was doing for free for Rugby United New York? Is that? But I don't know. I used to do a free pre-show and halftime show for Rooney.
You did.
Because they didn't do it.
Oh.
The production just didn't do it. So I'd be on the field. I'd have my iPhone with my earbuds, and I'd do a whole pre-match show going over, all the rosters, everything you would want. And again, if the MLR and TRN just took a fan like me, I mean, it was relatively as professional as it could be, but you get a fan to give them access, and you don't necessarily have to pay them. Look at the Free Jacks, the Jacks Rangers guys. I'm sure would do the same thing. I did it.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to work with other people to do it at other teams. They were just didn't have the relationships I had with New York, so they were weird about putting them on the field. But why not do that? And again, it doesn't have to go through the TRN feed. You could just do it through the individual YouTube feeds or the Instagram feeds of the individual teams. But that's how you kind of lay it out, right? Because what we talk about all the time, we want to try and match what the big leagues are doing. And when you see a New York Rangers match and you see the guys at the pregame, you're listening to your guys at MSG for the pregame. That's what you want to listen to. Then you're going into the first break, and that's what you want to listen to. You don't want to listen to a canned thing when and don't get me wrong, they're nicely produced, but what happens if there's a roster change? So that canned thing really goes out the window. And those are the kind of little, again, those professional tweaks and try and do it the best professional production we can that I think we can try to at least do. I know it's tough on travel. And again, I think there's a lack of quality rugby commentators out there, but freaking figure it out. You can train a guy like me up. It doesn't have to be me, but I'm just saying, I'm sure there's fans out there who have a good voice, who could do this type of production in a professional manner that could do this. And again, it doesn't have to be at a high cost. So
I'm down. So what's your second one?
Well, actually I'm on my third, Rob, but
oh, that's right.
That's why I'm the accountant and you're the
that's right. You jumped in front of me. I skipped the line.
So this one's going to be quite controversial.
Uh-oh.
My storyline for 2025 is, where the fuck is Nick Benson? So one of the things I've always said is a lot of times when leagues make noise, it's because their commissioner is making noise, and the guys' names. Everybody in the NFL has a common enemy. It doesn't matter if you're a Packers fan or a Bears fan or a Giants fan or a Chargers fan or a Houston fan. Everybody hates Roger Goodell. Now, what does that do? That brings everybody together to watch what he's going to do, to watch what's going on in the league. Now, don't get me wrong. Everybody doesn't have to hate Nick Benson. But my point is, he's out there. He's doing the draft. He's hugging the guys. He's putting the name out there with a face. So that way, if the crazy Twitter person does have an issue, they can go on Twitter and rail about it. But guess what? That's going to bring the SEO up of the whole league, right? Things are going to go viral. Shit like that needs to happen, right? Alonamar goes viral because she's doing content that's also outside of rugby. It's rugby adjacent. What was one of her biggest TikToks and tweets was the anti-sex beds and her saying, we're the top athletes in the world. You don't think we're going to figure out how to have sex on cardboard? That was her number one tweet. It had really nothing to do with rugby, right? But it was rugby adjacent because she plays rugby. And guess what? We have TikTok as a sponsor for the Women's Six Nations. We have PWR breaking attendance because Alona's in the league and coming in as a sub in the 61st minute. 15,000 people wanted to see that. Yeah. We need to get some more of those types of things into the MLR, right? So when I say, where the fuck is Nick Benson? He should be part of that. The MLR should be spotlighting players. It shouldn't be Ben talking to them when they're looking to retire or us talking to them when they're in the league. They need to be out there on the MLR channels of social media who have the following already, Rob, who have the following. I don't understand. You have a guy in Chicago whose nickname is the fucking Butcher. How they don't put Dylan Fawcett on the forefront of everything fucking rugby to get those crossover NFL fans.
I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you. I think sometimes even bad news can be good news for a league. But
the Minister of Defense, Reggie White, Dylan the Butcher Fawcett, what the fuck?
Well, the thing of it is, though, I think it's very dependent upon on personalities. And having spoke with Nick before, I know that he is just a low key dude. He does not like to be at the forefront. He likes to get things done behind the scenes.
Then you shouldn't be the forefront of. You shouldn't be the face of the administration of a league that's trying to compete with the big sports in America.
Well, keep in mind when he came into the league and stepped into that role, I think he was there. There needed to be a calming effect because of the exit of a couple, because teams were exiting or being asked to exit in that case. But even Dylan is not a guy who likes to put himself out there.
But you don't need to put himself out there. He's funny enough that you can put him out there.
Well, he is funny.
I'm not saying he has to do an hour-long podcast. All I'm saying is you could put him out here because he says funny shit. He motherfucks the locker room. He does everything that an NFL fan, college football fan wants to see out of a player on the field. Why aren't you using that?
Yeah, well, and behind the scenes, like locker room videos would be awesome. We would get a lot of traction out of that. Going to the locker room, going to the Hounds locker room, and find Dylan out there, front and center, and the guys, and leading the charge, so to speak, as they go on before the pitch. But I definitely think there's some great personalities in this league. I mean, I've interviewed, Jake from the Anthem, and what a tremendous guy and a lot of fun. I mean,
dude, there's literally I could name 100 guys that could fill this to give you content that pushed out by the MLR and then pushed out by the teams would cast a net so wide that you could actually have the viral moment.
Yeah. So I don't think you're wrong. I but I think the league really needs to look at which personalities, would really move the needle and be selective.
That's fine. But that's fine. But that's fine. And I just use Dylan as a good example because he's a friend of mine and he really is good on camera when he wants to be. And when he's pissed off, he's not going to want to be on camera.
He doesn't hold back.
Yeah.
Nope. But like Jake Turnbull, Luke White, those guys are great.
Luke White would be great. I mean, it was Chris Mattina would have been great. You're talking about a New York kid, an Eagle. He's doing, until our buddy Robert Remescu went to friggin' Romania. Again, another guy, Penn State, Eagle, Rooney, OGs. I mean, you could, the fact that they don't put Mike Petrie front and center, no offense, Ben, as like commentator. Like, I don't understand. He has the pedigree that we're looking for when we talk about, he played Xavier High School. He went to Penn State. He fucking, an Eagle, at scrum half, no less. He's playing international level at scrummy. He went and he started with New York and he stayed with New York. And when he was going to leave, he said, I'm just leaving the sport because I want to be with New York. Like that's what you want to show. And like, as much as they use him for the color commentary, like, again, why isn't he out there? It's just, I mean, I'm sure I'm put this way, and Ben doesn't have to answer this, but I'm sure the Big Ten has a profile of Ben Holden on the friggin' website when they talk about hockey commentators.
No, I'm not on there. No, and I won't. I no offense taken. I mean, Petrie. Every time I intro him, I call him the Hall of Famer, and I get this. He's so humble. He just doesn't like it.
Right.
No, I know that's the problem too. I know Mike. I'm a friend of Mike's. I know how he is, but force him to do it.
But your points are valid. Your points are valid. They really are, and that kind of goes back to my feeling and what I said earlier about getting the sport out there. Let's get it in a standalone position. There's a lot of things that can be done, and you guys are right. There are 100 guys that would be great at that kind of stuff, and I think it just comes down to sometimes. I mean, look, players don't want to do that stuff, right? Players don't like doing it. Let the team do it. Let the league do it. I think there is an area that we can really grow as a league in that regard. More needs to be out there. It's not to say that what's been done isn't good. It just needs to be more. It needs to be more in the mainstream, more in the spotlight, more of those viral moments. Yeah, more personalities. I mean, we've talked a lot of hockey here, but like one area that hockey lacks, like with comparatively speaking to the NBA, like what do you see before an NBA game? What guys are walking in, what they're wearing. You see it in the WNBA. You don't see that much in hockey. Let's get to know these guys. I think that's that's part of the responsibility. To Scott's point, let's get to know the players more. Let's get inside a little bit more. And that's one thing, Rob, you and I talked about the other day was access. Right. And you guys talked earlier about, wanting more time, more build up in the broadcast. Like, I'll say this. I told Rob this, Scott, when I did the US-Canada match in the PNC, the production of that match was awesome. We had like 12 minutes. Now, granted, it was just Zach Test and I, but we weren't rushed. We had time. We covered everything. Everything was produced so perfectly. And I got done. And the guy, Kyle Binder, I'll give KB a shout.
Yeah.
Kyle, I've worked with Kyle for now, this will be year 5 as the lead producer in Indy. And I said to him, I said, man, I wish we could do our matches like that. Just because you're not rushed. And it's
especially, sorry to interrupt, but especially if the match is on TRN. Like, I can understand if we have CBS Sports
and or Fox or whoever,
and the conference
2-hour window.
And the MAC conference championship ran late or whatever the fuck. And their contract is higher than ours. I understand the hierarchy of TV production, but if we have our own vehicle to do it, what's the difference if we're 2 hours or 3 hours?
Right. It doesn't, you're not trying to get it into that 2-hour window.
Yeah.
And I get that. That's important. I mean, personally, I'd love to see it be a 2.5-hour window.
Right.
Because then you could spend more time and do what you guys are talking about and build it up and get more people involved. And I mean, there's a lot of great people that are in our group. And you're right, Scott. There aren't a lot of broadcasters in this country. And for
and
me,
you can't have a guy like me because FCC will find us up the fucking ass. So
get out.
Because as soon as somebody knocks them out, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm surprised you didn't hear me in the Scotland Eagles match screaming, what the fuck are you kicking that for?
So were you the left or right of us looking at the field?
We would have been looking at the field. We would have been to the left of you.
Oh yeah, I know where you were. Man, it was hot that night too.
Oh my God, I was dying. I probably lost about 17 pounds. It was so humid. And then they said, oh, we're going to do another one in DC next year around this time. I'm like, I'm not fucking going.
Well, here's a little, I'll share a little broadcast story with you. So we were supposed to be, and I did 2 PR7s finals in that stadium. And both times I did it.
I was there too.
Were you? So it poured rain both times.
Yeah.
And I go to Portland for the one they had this year, which was awesome, by the way. And it poured rain. Thankfully, I was up top. Dallin got sent down for the last match. I think he's still mad at me for that one. But anyway, well, they wanted Spiff in the booth, and the more natural transition was to put her up there with me and Dallin down. But anyway, so we were supposed to be in that nice broadcast booth at Audi. And I think it was a day or two before, and I get a call, and hey, we're getting kicked out of the booth. I'm like, why are we getting kicked out of the booth, man? It's going to be 90 degrees. The humidity is going to be 85%. We're going to be sweating through our suits. Well, the coaches wanted to be in there, so we got bounced.
For
and the only other option, no, for the Scotland match. That's why we were in the camera well.
Okay.
That's why we were in the camera well.
Okay.
And the only other option was if you're looking out where we were, Scott, to our left. There was another box, but it was literally at the back of the tri-zone. It was literally on the line.
I know where that is.
End.
I know where that is. Yeah.
And
that's
I said,
where we were. That's where we were.
I told our producer, I said, put us at midfield, put us outside. We'll deal with it. I can't. Can't call it.
It was
there.
bad. It was so hot.
It was humid.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Ben, what was your third?
We digress. Man, I feel like I'm gonna pump the brakes here after the conversation we've had. But for me, I go back 2 years ago to San Diego and the amazing season they had. And I say that because my number 3 is Houston. Can they rebound after an early exit? They didn't even get as far as San Diego got 2 years ago, of course, getting to the final. 14-2. This group was really, really good. But that Dallas team, I mean, I remember Nate Osborne telling us, we want to play them. And sure enough, they got them and they beat them. And then, we all know what happened to Dallas in the conference final. And now they're no longer in the league, unfortunately, because I love their team. But that's my number 3. can Houston get back to form like they were last year, finishing 14-2 in the league?
I like that storyline. Our buddy Dan Henry would love that. Part of the Sabre Bros. Although now the Sabre Bros have to change all their
colors.
Stuff. Yeah, their colors. So Dan's
new logo
about that. Yeah.
yeah, I saw that.
All right, Hammer, what's your last one?
Yeah. So again, I'm going to go back to the things that matter most that I would like to see, and that is the MLR breaks all kinds of attendance records. You look at last year, week 18, Utah had the highest attendance of any game last year, 10,914. It was a regular season game high. The final had 12,085, the highest of any final in the MLR history. Average attendance was at 2,589 across the board, across the league for regular season. So, I mean, for me, it's really about bringing more butts and seats, getting not just the eyes on TV, but getting people through the turnstiles, paying for season tickets, getting out there and watching matches. That's what I would really like to see. And for what it's worth, top 2024 average attendance, top 4 teams: Seattle with 4,213, New England with 3,756, San Diego with 3,482. They're moving back to Torero, by the way, which is, I think, a good move, and Houston with 3,167. And I think proof is in the pudding of those 4 teams. 3 of the 4 have stadiums that just hold just under 5,000. And so what matters? Packed crowd that are making a shit ton of noise. That's what makes a great rugby environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, stadium. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
No, thanks, Scott. I was just going to say, Rob, to your point, I think that's a great move for San Diego going back to Torero. I really do. I mean, obviously, Snapdragon's a beautiful stadium,
right?
But even when they got 5,000 or 6,000 in there, it's a wise move financially for them. And my first rugby match in Major League Rugby was 19 in the final that year that was there.
Ooh,
and I remember looking at Brian Hightower in that booth saying, "Is this thing going to fall down?" I mean, it was shaking so much, and I was like, I was hooked in that moment, guys. But I think that's a great move for them to go back there. They'll have great crowds. They may lead the league in attendance back in that stadium this year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Right. I think they will.
Yeah.
And in my mind, exclusivity sometimes builds interest, right?
Yeah,
if you're packing the house every single game, and I think that's what happened in Seattle, right? They're maxing out their attendance.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a hard
New
ticket,
England too.
hard ticket to get.
As much as Scotty hates them,
right?
Yeah,
no, that's true. That's true.
But even remember,
and so people want to go.
But you can get in trouble with that if you remember Atlanta at Catholic University. It was to their detriment that they couldn't have all those people because there was more people who wanted to attend, and it became so exclusive that they had to move to.
You mean OGC?
I'm sorry, OGs.
Yeah.
Sorry, not Atlanta. OGs.
Yeah.
And it was too exclusive, and then they had to kind of move around. But again, you could find that good balancing point, and New England's done that. We know Torero's that point for San Diego, and we know where Seattle is with it. And same thing with Utah. Like, weather dependent. If they have a fucking snow game, they're not going to fill it. But that's just the way it is. But man, this is a long, fun episode.
This is the longest episode, maybe.
I mean, we try, like, it's fun though, because we had so much to talk about. Me and Rob tried not to talk about topics as much during the break, because we've done that before, where we've taken a break and we've talked the topics out so much that we're like, you're kind of gassed out on the episode. So me and him were like kind of, I wouldn't say anti-rugby, but we really kept the rugby chatter to a minimum, and was more about business, like how we're going to do this, or how we're going to do in coaching corner and stuff like that. So it was really good to kind of get back in the saddle and, really get back on the show and
work with an actual pro.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I think the last time we worked with a professional was Dallin in episode 1.
Right. Episode 1?
Yeah.
It was our first year, in our first episode. Yeah.
If you go back, it's somewhere on our Facebook or YouTube, or I might send it to you, because his wife gave him a COVID haircut, and it was so bad. It was so bad.
I love Dallin. I mean, he is he's a guy that's been nothing but helpful to me, man. And he's an unbelievable dude. And we got to work together at that event.
He's a great guy.
Back in November, and versatile, and I like to say the same about other things I do, but he's he's a great guy, and I have nothing but great things to say about Dallin. He's a friend, and I enjoy working with him. Hopefully, we'll do a bunch of PR7s events coming up together this coming summer.
Definitely. No, he's a great dude, and he helped us out with how to, like, go through some of the stuff, and same thing with us. He kind of guided us a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'd maybe throw our buddy Rolly Pratt in there, because he was
love Rolly.
Yeah, some stuff as a professional.
He's another beauty. Yeah, he's a great guy. I missed him.
So,
I don't think we used him last year.
No, I don't think so either. But he's semi-professional. He's semi-professional.
Rob, you'll be doing matches this year then, I presume?
Yeah, I'll be doing all the Chicago Hounds matches. So, if they need me to fill in where there's opportunities, I'll always put my hand up.
That's all we need. Sweating your balls off in Houston in fucking June.
That's rough.
Well, I'll take sweat my balls off in New Orleans, but Houston's okay too.
Well, you can sweat them off in Chicago too.
Yes.
Not as bad as Houston, but
no, not as bad.
But guys,
I just get the freeze on the front end of the season, then
exactly
the sweating balls on the back end,
defrost in the back end.
Right.
But guys, this is a great episode again, a banger of a start for season 6. For our fans out there, we have what do we got? Oh, we got, the website's coming up with our buddy Pierce Lobin, has his stuff coming out. Rick Collins having articles coming out. Me and Hammer have articles coming out. We have the Rugby 102 portion coming out of our website. We have a rugby poems portion coming out from the big guy. Check out some of my I write a little bit. So
are you
shout out
following Petrie's lead?
Not particularly. I'm not the best writer. I'm sure he's a better writer than I am. But I actually, our buddy Adam Hughes, who does the website with us and writes articles, I sent a small poem to him. He's like, you should really publish that. And he kind of got me going back into some of my old stuff and just doing things again that are kind of rugby adjacent, but kind of little things to put out there. So, if anybody else wants to join the rugbyrant.com to put out blogs and talk about anything rugby, not just North American rugby, we're talking about anything rugby there, please contact us, rugbyrantpod@gmail.com. Check out all of our social medias. Check out our Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever the TikTok, wherever the hell we are. We're out there all the time. We're going to get Hammer do some TikTok dances on the sideline next. That'll be fun. But yeah, we're also coming out with some short content. We're coming back with Let's Get Hot with the big guy. We have our Coach's Corner week 2 coming. Who's week 2?
That would be Coachy Pellicina from Miami.
Miami coach coming out. So that's going to be a good one. Check out our previous episode 1 was a great one with John Minetti. And man, it's great to be back, Rob. I got super excited.
Back in the saddle again.
Excited. And Ben, thank you so much again for coming on and lending your professional voice and your aura to us, your expertise, your aura, making us a little bit more legitimate than we usually are. So that's always fun, because now everybody's gonna be like, oh, you're like we had talked about, you're a rugby pundit. No, I'm not. I'm just a guy who talks a lot of shit.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, and honestly, I'd come on whenever you guys might ask. I'm happy to join you whenever. I had a lot of fun and a lot of laughs, and thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it, boys.
Awesome. Pleasure's all ours.
Can't wait to. I'll get to hear you next week for that Michigan game. So that'll be nice.
Saturday night, Big Ten Network, and then rugby and MLR. We get going that opening weekend, and hopefully we get the schedule lined up and locked up here, and hopefully in the next week or so, and that'll be out so everybody can start planning, and we get ready for those midweek games, boys.
Awesome. And check out When the Game Is Over on social media and YouTube. It's a great show. I really, really enjoy watching it. So guys, that's another one done and dusted. I'm the big guy, Scott Farrar. That's Rob the Hammer Hammerschmidt for our buddy Ben Holden. Man, it's full time, baby. We'll see you at the next.